You have 25 horses and want to determine the fastest 3. However, you can only race at most 5 horses at a time. What is the lowest number of races you need to determine the fastest 3? If you want to give the problem a try, pause the video here and come back for the solution. Now, let's first divide our 25 horses into 5 groups of 5. We'll call these groups A, B, C, D, and E. Let's also give each horse in each group its own number. So it will be horse 1, horse 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this means that this horse is A1, B1, B2, C2, and so on. Now, for our first race, we'll race each horse in each group against all the other horses in that group. So we'll have one race of just group A, one race of group B, one race of group C, and so on. So this will be 5 races in total where we just race group A, B, C, D, and E, which will be 5 races in total. Let's assume that in each group, horse number 1 wins, horse number 2 comes in second, horse number 3 comes in third, and so on. So A1 wins, B1 wins, C1 wins, D1 wins, and E1 wins. Now, based on this, we can already eliminate 10 horses. We can eliminate A5, B5, C5, D5, and E5, as well as A4, B4, C4, D4, and E4. This is because we know that, for example, A5, there's already 4 horses faster than A5, so it can't be under the top 3. Same with A4, there's already 3 horses faster than A4, so it can't be in the top 3. And this holds for all these 10 horses. Now for our next race, let's race all the winners against each other. So we'll race A1 against B1, against C1, against D1, against E1, and this will be one race. Let's again suppose that A1 wins. So A1 is the fastest, then B1, then C1, then D1, and then E1. So we already know that among all 25 horses, A1 is the fastest. So we can draw a little podium here, second place right here. And this is 1, 2, and 3, and we'll put A1 up here. Now, since D1 and E1 came in 4th and 5th, respectively, we can eliminate all these 6 horses, namely D1, D2, and D3, as well as E1, E2, and E3. This is because they're already, like, each of these horses is slower than these respective horses, and those horses are slower than all these 3 horses. So they can't be under the top 3. Now, as mentioned, we already know that A1 is the fastest horse, so we don't really have to consider it either. So all the horses we have to consider are these 9 horses right here. Now, I claim that we can also eliminate C3, C2, and B3. This is because, for example, for B3, we already know that B3 is slower than B2 from the first race, from this race, and we also know that it's slower than B1. However, we also know that B1 is slower than A1, so we know that B3 is slower than B2, B1, and A1. So it cannot be under the top 3. Similarly, for example, C3, we know it's slower than C2 and C1, and C1 is slower than B1 and is slower than A1, so C3 cannot be under the top 3. Finally, for C2, we know that C2 is slower than C1, and we know C1 is slower than B1, and B1 is slower than A1, so C2 cannot be under the top 3 horses. Now we only have 5 horses left, so we can have one final race to determine their order, namely B1 against C1 against A2 against B2 against A3, which is one race. And so let's say that B1 comes first, then C1, which means that we already know that B1 is the second fastest horse and C1 is the third fastest horse. So, counting up all these races, we have 7 races in total, which is the minimum number of races you need to determine the fastest 3. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this brain teaser. If you enjoy these types of problems, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you next time.